In an attempt to really understand what I like and dig into where I'd like to take my own painting, it occurred to me that putting together a video about the miniature projects from other people that I've enjoyed this year might be a good idea. It's a perfect celebration of the work that has caught my eye this year in the community, and this format forces me to articulate things that might have just existed at the back of my head for a while, and kind of speaking them into existence might help me forge a clear path for how I'd like to paint going forward. Plus, you get to see some incredible paint jobs and hopefully discover some new painters in the process. Okay, first up, this is Arnau Lazaro's box art paint job for a model called Mako from Black Crow Miniatures. The sculpt is by Elena Karimova, and this is in here because the second I saw it, it was just like a gut punch. First of all, the model is super nice. The samurai theme is great, and there feels like the right amount of detail on offer here. The reds immediately jump out, and the cast shadow from the hat gives the skin tones a huge variation from neutrals in the face right up the value range to almost white. I love the greenish grey tones on the armour panels, the lovely green to blue gradient on the waistband, and there's some really nice details like the chainmail near the elbows, the freehand on both the sash and the shoulders, and that lovely difference in reds between the plume and the bodice orangey red, and that slightly colder or more pink red of the sleeves. The only issue I have with this paint job is that it's so good I don't think I can ever pick the model up and paint it myself. I'd only ever be trying to compete with this, and Arnau has, in my opinion, done a perfect job already. Okay, next up is Stephanie Krueger's piece Rainbow Knight, or Arbiter of the Spectrum, or Defender of the Rainbow. I don't know if she decided on a name. This model is the Titania Steel Mesh bust from Loot Studios, and it's from their Cult of Hunger release, and it won second in the busts category. It won the Blinded by Colour Special Judges Award, and it won a Verco's Vault token at Resin Beast this year, which I think is held at Adepticon. I think it's pretty obvious why I like this one. Just look at those colours, the gradients, the vibrancy, and such a crazy choice of reflective colours to render into that armour. I'm not even sure I'd know where to start with painting something like this, but I love how mesmerising the whole thing is. It's not just a one-trick pony either. The leather is wonderfully rendered, as is the chainmail, and even that subtle use of the same shades of colour in the face. All super, super nice. Now, next I'd like to look at three different paint jobs by the same person. This is Diego Ruiz Lacaci, I hope that's how he says his names, aka Lacaci Studio on Instagram. All three were commission jobs for a private collector, but these sets of Necromunda models from Warhammer are sublime, and despite all being vastly different, they all have a very difficult to pin down consistency. I think Diego's work shows a huge variety in tones and lots of subtle colour shifts across materials, a great sense of clear light sources, and a really cohesive colour palette with each of these pieces, or with each of these duos. The House Tie models, of course, mirroring some of the tones from Stephanie Krueger's Knight, and the wild green and purple reflections across the Abyssal Ferryman are just mincing my brain a little bit in the best way possible. I think the approach here is amazing, and especially considering the scale of these models. I'm really looking forward to seeing more from Diego. Okay, now to one that I have seen in person. In fact, I saw it in person before I saw pictures of it, so I know this one really lives up to the hype. I was lucky enough to meet Florian and admire his work at Golden Demon this year, and it was no surprise to me that this took gold in the Necromunda category. The work that went into this, from basing, setup, and the small details to freehand patterns on the robes, the layout, everything that went in here really blew me away. And the effort is undeniable, and again, it is super nice to see those House Tie Onimodo, I think is they're called. It's nice to see those House Tie models getting some much deserved attention. Now, although I met Keigo Murakami this year at SMC, I was not able to see this piece in person, but this one from him, sculpted by Masato Ohata, is a garage kit called In Front of the Cave. A very different style of painting here, but I'm as drawn to the paint job here as I am to the subject matter and the sculpt. The punchy orange of the jacket caught my eye first, but the unfathomably smooth paint job on the skin, the bodysuit and things like the metals are all just really wonderfully executed. I love the subtle dust around the bottom of the leggings and the subtle lighting effect on the darker parts of the model. I think the restraint shown here in not punching those orange values up to white just demonstrates a really solid experience in painting. If you get the opportunity to explore Keigo's work, I recommend it. His style is definitely more on the East Asian side of things. His model choice is definitely leaning towards things like anime, so you get your fair share of busty waifus and giant eyes and such like. But so much of his figure work is so smooth and impressive, it's actually impossible not to find something that you would admire. Okay, so there's definitely an orange theme emerging here. What can I say? This next piece from Spanish painter Iker Inza, I hope that is how you pronounce his name, who goes by Distopia Games on Instagram, and this sculpt is called The Buddy from Mindworks Studio. Sadly, it's no longer available since I've been hunting for it since seeing this piece, so if you know anybody that has it and they're willing to part with it, please let me know. This was Iker's submission for Monte Sansovino this year, and I am a huge fan of this one. The almost cel-shaded, cartoon-like rendering in places like the trousers and fabrics really suit the sculpt. Those deep red shadows of the skin tones and the overall warmth are, to me, very pleasing to look at. The rust on the axe and that lovely almost blue-green-grey tone in the hair, all of it just really works super well together. Next up is a sculpt which I saw last year at the SMC show from Katerina Hertzeshina, or Asa Sculpts or Asha Sculpts on Instagram. She has some amazing sculptures, and this one was picked up by Neko Galaxy and released in time for this year's SMC. And I was one of a small handful of people who managed to pick up a copy at the show, even before this cover artwork was done. This particular paint job is from Yisong Liu, a miniature painter based in Germany, and I have to say it is super, super nice. I think I love it because it's not immediately the direction I was planning to take the paint job with this piece, so I don't feel like it's ruined my own enjoyment. If anything, it's shown me ways in which I can improve my approach that I'm working on. The pink glowing lights, the blue glowing lights, and again that lovely orangey yellow on the claw. There's so much to like about all the colours here, and the Mini is big enough that there's actually a lot of scope for different colours to live in their own spaces on the Mini. The whole purple thing going on with that kind of crescent of mecha that we see is a really great contrast to the warmer yellow and the brown tones and even green tones on the woman. I'm also really enjoying the non-metallic metal at the bottom of this piece, since I think a lot of painters might have just left that purple or kind of let it drift into the background, but picking a nice gold to mirror the gold at the top really works well, and using that kind of purpley reflection in the NMM is super good. This piece has done exactly the right thing for me with regard to this Mini, and instead of putting me off, it's actually energised me to crack on and give my own version a good old shot. Okay, back to Golden Demon and another Mini I was fortunate enough to see in person. Despite having the paint job kind of blown out in the cabinets, this thing hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw it, and then subsequently when I saw the pictures online. I mean, wow. This Mini is Ionis Cryptborn from Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and the painter is former Slayer Sword winner Borja Calvo Bertrand de Lis. Again, probably said that name wrong, I do apologise. This thing for me is all about two things: the metals and the reds. Firstly, the metals are super fun all over, from the bronze or that brassy copper on the dragon to the gold and the dark silver on the rider. There's so much to like about it, the interesting reflections, the value range, and then the reds are wonderfully vibrant. That red to almost purple gradient is really nice, and it really helps focus the eye towards the centre of the miniature. I like the natural tones in the base, and although they mirror some of the colours in the cape, they don't really detract from the dragon and the rider. This was another paint job that just made me stop my own version of this model. I've kind of put it aside until I can calm down a little bit, since I'm not sure I'll ever be able to reach this level myself. It was definitely a wow paint job for me. So Gabi Tazarzik first appeared in my feeds with her adaptation of her own traditional art pieces, Fashion Beasts, when she had them sculpted, printed and then painted them up for a few competitions back in 2023. Since then I've really admired her work, and I've been fortunate enough to see some of it in person. Sadly not the Fashion Beasts, but perhaps one day I'll be able to see them. Anyway, last month she posted her paint job of the Midgard Miniatures piece Violet, which I had also picked up to paint at this year's SMC competition. Part of my love for this piece is of course the stylised sculpt by Australian living in LA Peter Sandeman, but I couldn't help really falling for Gabi's style here. Her wonderful skin tones and warm textures, her subtle use of the violet pastel colours, and that really nice light grey hair. I particularly like what I see as almost wistful eyes, and there's just such a charm in seeing a piece like this where there's far more of a painterly approach without it feeling like it's super messy or chaotic. You should absolutely check Gabi's work on Instagram, and everything, as with all of these painters, is linked in the description below. Lucas is another painter whose work really catches my eye every time it lands on my feeds. He has been really smashing it out the park this year, and his box artwork for Realms of Tiberium has been no exception. This bust of Jacob Gregorin, sculpted by Joaquin Palacios, is super nice. The textures, the lovely reddy purple toned leather textures, and the warmth and emotion in the face. The standout part for me though is the metals. I don't know how he does it, but Lucas has just seemingly nailed his non-metallic metals this year. I believe his technique is, I just looked at reference images of metal and painted what I saw, but I'm absolutely not convinced it's that simple. I think what blows me away particularly about this piece is that the style here isn't ultra smooth. He's still showing his brush strokes and building some lovely texture on the piece, but still managing to render a super convincing gold and silver shoulder pad with such finesse. It fills me with hope that one day I may be able to do the same sort of thing. I have also seen this piece in person, and it stands up in hand very, very well. So moving to another piece I've been fortunate enough to see in person, this is David Roberts, aka Diddy's silver Golden Demon winning Necromunda squat, which he entered into this year's Adepticon. Diddy is one of the few painters in the community today that I would love to watch paint. Given the opportunity, since he has a beautiful consistency across all of his pieces, and I really tend to love his model choice. This one's no exception, and I find the muted blue palette and those lovely bronzes are working so nicely together. This mini has so much texture, yet it's so well refined, and the focal point of the face really draws the eye. And there's some great subtle texture on the leather tabard parts at the front, and even the chips on the pipe have multiple levels of depth and highlights applied. I'm also a fan of the Gundam transfers, which I've used myself in the past. They offer a little bit more detail and mecha-styled graphics than the Warhammer sheets tend to. Also, look at the rendering on that bronze clip hanging from the armour. I'm really looking forward to more from Diddy in 2026. So this piece is probably a bit more traditional in terms of paint jobs, but it really caught my eye at Fen Model Show this year, where I was lucky enough to see it on the shelf. Fletcher Giles painted up this Grimbeorn, which is it's a 28mm scale piece from Middle-earth strategy battle game from Warhammer. So just that little bit smaller than your regular Warhammer parts. This took a silver in the Masters category at Fen, and it actually inspired me to pick this model up to try my own rendition. The size of this piece, combined with the fact that the materials are all rendered beautifully in a really harmonious scheme, just makes this feel really right to me. The base really elevates the Mini, and the pose and the cleanliness of things like the skin and the NMM on the axe really stood out to me. Fletcher has won a Golden Demon in the past and is also one of the studio artists for Tabletop Tactics. Okay, time for something a bit different now. This piece caught my eye this year back in July. It is a Stigmatic Nun for the Trench Crusade game system, and this is a fully custom sculpt. Matt Difa is the artist and the sculptor too, but this stood out to me for a couple of reasons. First, stylistically, to my eye, it has almost, dare I say it, cartoon vibes on the go, but I think that's helped by the second reason I love it, which is the rendering of the blood on the skin. Something about the tone of the red, the running pattern that it's in, and the overall feel of that is just very pleasing to the eye. Matt's work on painting up the Holy Shogunate from the Japanese variant on the new Antioch faction from Bite the Bullet Studio was also super nice. Definitely almost a cel-shaded approach style-wise, but lovely vibrant colours emphasised by a great sculpt. So if you like this model, you can check out Matt's work on My Mini Factory too and pick it up and print it for yourself. This next one is another I managed to see in person at SMC this year, and boy was it a feast for the eyes. This is painted by Chak Leung. Obviously the highlight here is the non-metallic metals. Reflecting an entire city in the armour is a really interesting way to set the piece in an environment without using a base or a backdrop. The warm tones and the oranges obviously really speak to me here, but of course I'm a big sci-fi nut, so the subject matter really works too. I don't actually know the origins of this mini or even whether it's one or two separate minis, but if anybody knows, feel free to comment below and enlighten me. Obviously some super nice colour work going on the figure's outfit, both jacket and bodysuit, and of course the darker, richer tones in the armour below balance nicely with the lighter sky reflections across the shoulders and the upper chest. I would love to see more like this, where the mini is used more as a canvas for something else without going too far down that kind of regular freehand route. Sticking with Asian painters, this time we have a Malaysian painter who goes by Mini Dooney and his amazing heavy infantry with axe from the new Antioch faction of Trench Crusade once again. This thing seemed to have won gold at a competition that I believe is called Malcolm this year, but I love this for a few reasons. First of all, the base. Simple, elegant, and just a great idea, and absolutely an idea that I'd love to try myself. The blood, I assume it's blood, and the ripples it's just so effective. The reflections of that in the underside of the armour and of course that red-green really work well together. I do love the armour here, the brown shades in the weathering, the light almost mint-like colours in the highlights, and that overall hue shift in the greens is just really stunning. Even the little transfer or the freehand on the breastplate is nice and eye-catching without being kind of gratuitous. So I'm a big fan of this one. This guy also does traditional digital illustration work too, so go check his work out on Instagram where he's linked to both profiles. Okay, so something a little different again here, although still very much in my wheelhouse. This is an absolute joy to look at. Scrim Paints is, I think, a guy called Ben Stadler, although please, Scrim, if you see this, let me know whether that's correct or not. I don't want to get anything wrong here. Scrim Paints on Instagram. His work is often fairly military in feel, and it tends to feature a lot of the Warhammer scale minis, but with varying degrees of honestly incredible conversion and tweaks and so on. This piece in particular is it's a stunner. This Dreadnought plus the Phobos Marines in what's clearly a kind of battle situation is just fantastic. The textures, the overall theme, the way that it's laid out, this dusty mid-battle scene, the basing, the realistic weathering, the subtle OSL and all of that posing all comes together beautifully. I would love to see this in person. It is a lot of fun as far as I'm concerned. Also, get yourself over to his Instagram and take a look at his exploding Humvee model that he has done since this. It is wild. Okay, this one is, it's a little paint job that nearly went under my radar, but I'm a big fan of the German painter Corius and his real commitment to Necromunda, both the minis and the terrain, and he even hosts his own event called Corius Con. He's done some wonderfully impressive builds, and he has all sorts of super well-painted gangs, but it was these minis that really caught my eye. Now, I suspect, as you have probably guessed, it was the orange, but this outcast gang that he has named the Scrapspire Collective are really super nice. So the orange suits are one thing, but paired with the black armour, which is really subtly done, really works for me. Corius always has such a beautiful tone across his miniature painting work, very well controlled edge highlights and quite often a muted but somehow still vibrant scheme. I'd love to see his full collection in person one day, but until then I have to settle myself with his Instagram. If you want more, he also has a great Patreon where you can check his recipes and learn to paint in the same way that he does. And lastly, sticking with German painters, we have Lukas Kuhn, aka Chewy. This was a highlight from this year's Golden Demon in Essen for me. Immediately recognisable, this delightful little Thunderhawk in epic scale jumped out of the cabinet. Definitely the focal point here is the colour shift, light emitting from the front of the gunship and highlighting that marine with the shadow and everything. But there's so much to like here, from the entire volcanic environment complete with glowing lava to the exquisitely painted gunship itself in greys and browns. Believe it or not, this was Lucas's first time painting at this scale, so I mean, it's absolutely stellar work. I don't know how it fared ultimately in the competition, but it was definitely one of my favourites. Chewy also has a really good Patreon with loads of tutorials and loads of stuff to learn from. I was only able to meet him briefly in Essen, but he seems to be a really nice guy too, which obviously helps. So, how did you feel about all of those? Do you have any favourites from this year that I didn't mention? Do you know of any pieces that you think I'd love but maybe I haven't seen? Feel free to share them in the comments or join the Discord and post them. All the links are in the description below. I would love to hear what you enjoyed this year. Looking back this year on my favourites has given me this renewed sense of where I'd like to take my own painting to, allowing me to lean into the things that I like as opposed to just aimlessly painting my way through yet another year. So here's to 2026 and to enjoying more incredibly painted minis. Until next time, bye bye.